Eileen is directed by William Oldroyd and stars Thomasin McKenzie and Anne Hathaway, and it is the story of when a woman's friendship with a new coworker at the prison facility where she works takes a sinister turn. Now, that's a very vague premise, and the trailers are also very vague and don't give anything away. In fact, for most of the movie, you really have no idea what the sinister turn is, so I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. Right off the bat, Thomasin McKenzie is an absolute star. I loved her in Jojo Rabbit, and I loved her in Last Night in Soho, which is one of my favorite movies ever, and she just needs bigger roles because she's super talented. She's really gifted at conveying emotion with her eyes and subtle facial expressions, but she also has the ability to come alive in the movie's more intense moments. This movie really plays to her strengths because her character is really shy and doesn't have anyone to talk to a lot of the time. A lot of the opening scenes of the movie establish that her father doesn't really appreciate her or listen to her, and she doesn't really have any friends at the prison facility. She's very modest and she's lonely in more ways than one, and you get the sense that she just kind of wants to feel seen. And then she meets the new prison psychologist, Rebecca, played by Anne Hathaway, and Rebecca is kind of everything that Eileen wants to be. She's confident and she's beautiful, and when she walks into a room, everyone takes notice. And so Eileen becomes enamored with Rebecca and gets a little carried away. There's an interesting juxtaposition of scenes where she's trying to tell her father about her day, and her father only wants to talk about himself and doesn't really listen to Eileen at all. And then in the very next scene, she has a conversation with Rebecca, and Rebecca actually pays attention and listens to her. And so we have this dynamic where Eileen's father and Rebecca are opposing forces, where Eileen's father drives Eileen to Rebecca because Rebecca provides everything that her father can't. Something that I thought was really creative about this movie is it has these sort of daydream sequences where we see Eileen's thoughts. Daydream sequences are nothing new, but what sets these apart is it's not obvious when we're in the daydream sequences until something jarring happens, and then the movie immediately snaps us out of the daydream and back to reality. These daydreams give us insight into Eileen's thoughts, obviously, and they also inject some dark humor, but the primary purpose is that when something really jarring happens and it doesn't snap us out of a daydream, we get this reaction of, oh shit, this is real. And it's super effective. I think most thrillers are able to be engaging when the thrilling parts happen, but where a lot of bad thrillers fall apart and struggle is with the build-up. And I thought this movie does a good enough job at keeping the build-up engaging. I did feel a bit of waiting for something to happen, sometimes in a good tense way, but other times in a not so good way where the movie was kind of dragging a bit. But when those things do happen, this movie really takes off. This movie is super unpredictable and it's a lot of fun. The camera work becomes more creative with lots of long takes and slow zooms. The score picks up and becomes more menacing and intense. This movie really hits another gear once shit goes down. I also think the ending of this movie will be a bit divisive, but personally I didn't mind it. Something I did mind, however, is the character work. Only Eileen has any sort of depth or character arc. Our other two main characters, Eileen's father and Rebecca, get zero development at all. Particularly Rebecca, we don't get any insight at all into why she is the way she is or why she does what she does. The movie's runtime is only a little over an hour and a half long, and so I wish there was maybe one or two extra scenes used to flesh out some of the other characters. Another thing that was kind of iffy for me was the dialogue. I think there's a fine line between cheesy and poignant dialogue, and this movie definitely had some lines that fell on the cheesy side. But at the same time, there were also some lines that I thought were really sharp and clever. I also thought there were some minor sound mixing issues, which made it hard to understand the dialogue at some points. Overall, the movie has its flaws, but I think it's unique and entertaining enough that I'll probably watch it again at some point. I honestly think Thomasin McKenzie alone is enough of a reason to watch this movie, and I can't wait to see what she does next. If you've stuck around until this point, I just want to thank you for watching, and if you've seen Eileen, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.